Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. I hope that you are all doing well and that you are all having a great day. Welcome to another weekend edition. This is videos that I go a bit slower when I talk because I usually talk extremely fast, and I go a bit more in depth on certain topics or certain coins or certain projects that I think are very interesting. And this is one that I think should have covered from the very beginning, and that is Bitcoin. I thought about doing a video on the entire history of Bitcoin, and you'll actually see these aren't actually all the tabs that I have open. It gets pretty intense. So I thought of kind of cutting it down and doing like a basic evolution of the history of Bitcoin, exactly where it's been and kind of where I believe that it's going. Because for those who do not know, I've been into cryptocurrencies. I didn't actually realize it had almost been around 5, maybe 6 years by now. And you don't really pay attention to the day-to-day things that are happening, especially in the cryptocurrency world. You kind of, we don't realize how quickly time passes, but it's going through all of these articles and all of these things that have happened within Bitcoin. You realize, at least I think so, that something incredibly significant is actually happening to our world that we kind of take for granted that is actually happening as the days pass us by. To start things off, I am not a professional financial advisor. Take everything that I say with a grain of salt. If I talk anything about prices or anywhere prices may go, these are just my opinions or things that I have read online. Please make sure to always do your own research when it comes to where you put your money. This is very important because this is how you keep track of your money and potentially become rich in the future. So, one of the oldest things that I was actually able to find on the internet, which is kind of crazy, is from February 11th, 2009. And it says it was posted by Satoshi Nakamoto. And it literally says, I've developed a new open source peer-to-peer eCash system called Bitcoin. It's completely decentralized with no central server or trusted parties because everything is based on crypto proof instead of trust. Give it a try or take a look at the screenshots and design paper. When I saw this, I don't know how many of you guys read things or see things from many years ago and you kind of get chills. It's very weird because Satoshi Nakamoto is literally this like almost ghostly figure. No one knows what he looks like, where he is, if it's even just one person. So to actually find something from 2009 that was posted by Satoshi and then to see the beginning of what we're in now, because we don't realize how much cryptocurrency has evolved. You see, as I go through all the tabs, you'll realize exactly how far we've actually come. This was someone wrote great stuff. Like, imagine being this person and not realizing exactly what Bitcoin is. Like you just assume that this is kind of something, because Bitcoin, for those who do not know as well, was actually not the first attempt at doing this. There was a group of people, I think it's about 6 or 7 people. They actually came together and tried this multiple times. I believe in 2001, there was also an attempt, and I believe 2007. And it's rumored that one of these 7 people who eventually tried the thing in 2007, eventually broke off from everyone else, created their own thing called Bitcoin after the financial crisis in 2008. And this is how it kind of developed, and it was put out into the system, and it just completely has exploded from there. This is also another really old article about Bitcoin, exactly what it is. Bitcoin is a very young currency. They're talking about the first transaction for it. I believe that this was also made in 2009 or 2010, this article. About it, first transaction for pizza, etc., etc. How many are going around in the world? It's just all kind of completely odd. This is one of the things that actually got a lot of people who I know into cryptocurrencies. The main thing, I'm sure you've all seen it or have heard about it, because this is what caused a lot of people to jump into the market, is if you had $100 of Bitcoin in 2010, it would be $75 million. I think it's even more than that today because of where prices are, but especially when it hit 20,000, this was like the main point where a lot of people started to come in. So this is where it gets kind of ridiculous. This was posted April 27th, 2011. I think it was originally in French. I'm not exactly sure how I found it in English, but this is the first article that I can find online about the Bitcoin bubble. We've heard about Bitcoin bubbles for as long as I have been in this sphere, but bubbles to me are, if Bitcoin is 7,000 or 8,000 or, maybe 15,000, 25,000, whatever the case might be on that current day, or wherever the price may be going. These articles were talking about Bitcoin being a bubble when it was around, I think, $7. Yeah. In less than 10 months, Bitcoin raised from 1 cent to nearly $1, €1.30. But how much of this value is due to market and how much is due to speculation? What will happen in the future? This almost seems like a joke now, because if anyone told us that we could get a Bitcoin for 1.30 or 1 cent, we would start foaming at the mouth and literally empty our bank accounts to buy as many of them as humanly possible. So to find something like this from so long ago that was talking about a bubble in any way is absolutely crazy. This is also the first mention that I could ever find online, to me personally, that I was able to find in 2011 of a Bitcoin bubble and a crash. And this literally talks about Mount Gox, how many there were Bitcoin circulating. There were only 6 million Bitcoin that were actually circulating, and $2 million worth were traded on Mount Gox. No coin under, I think, the number 300 coin trades around 2 million per day. The price of a Bitcoin climbed slowly but steadily until May, when Gawker and the tech blog published 2 big stories about the phenomenon. Prices started zigzagging, hitting a high of $33 last week after 3 weeks of increasingly frenzied trading, and then fell a spectacular 30% Friday, when the blogs dubbed Digital Black Friday. As of now, 3 p.m., a Bitcoin can be had for around $18. So you're slowly starting to see, starting from 2009 to 2011, it was still something that was incredibly nerdy. The first time, I don't know if I told this story before, I don't know if you guys really care. The first time that I ever heard about Bitcoin was at a friend's house. I had a friend who was extremely into World of Warcraft, all these games where you have digital money and digital currencies and stuff like that in the game. And I remember him talking about cryptocurrencies, and rather Bitcoin. He spoke about Bitcoin, and he said, I think the value was a couple of dollars. And me and my friend were there with him, and we laughed. We said, why would anyone ever want a digital currency? I think I took out $1 from my wallet, and I think I showed it or waved it at him, whatever the case might have been, to prove my point that digital money has no value. And it was only until a couple of years later that I wish I had a time machine. Bitcoin crashes. When we think about crashes now, especially if you have been here since December, you know that a crash is when you go from $20,000 per Bitcoin to around 6,000 something, and your heart beats fast because you wonder if you've been a fool this entire time. Not going from $13 to $7 a Bitcoin. I guess at the time, it had to be pretty significant, especially there were a lot of articles with people talking about they never thought that Bitcoin would actually get over $1. And this is when this is when the Winklevoss twins, I believe, when they got into it, when it was around $1, and a lot of other people, because they realized, if something went from below 1 cent and then you end up getting to a whole dollar, there's something here. But I don't think anyone ever really thought that we'd actually get to the numbers that we're seeing now. And this is the first mention in 2011 of someone writing any type of article like this. You can slowly see the evolution of where things are heading when someone writes an article. Why I'm putting all my life savings into Bitcoin. I think if any of us listening to this or watching this, if you had the chance, you would do this in a heartbeat. There would be nothing that would stop you from putting as much money as possible into this. But there are a lot of people who started taking notice, and I wish that I was one of those people. They start talking about so normal currencies vary by a few percent over the course of a year, not Bitcoin. On March 30th of last year, someone asked for $50 for 10,000 Bitcoin in the trading and wasn't taken up on the offer. He got an offer of $25. Still, somebody claimed in the thread that the going rate was about $6.50 per 1,000 Bitcoin. That's per 1,000. So while we are conflicting numbers between $2.50 and $6.50 at the rate of 1,000 Bitcoin, let's be conservative and go with the higher $6.50 per 1,000 Bitcoin and compare it to today. As of midnight 2011, the rate is $8.30 per Bitcoin. Not to talk about any other coins, but this is why I give you guys specific coins that I talk about. There's been so many things. This part may not be super relevant later on for anyone else, especially if you haven't been watching my other videos. Since the prices have been going back up the last couple of days, you may have noticed a lot of other YouTube channels have started to reactivate, and they're hyping up these horrible coins once again. I guess it's just a cycle. Once the prices start going back up, people start to find ways to make money and cheat other people out of their money. But there's a reason why I tell you about certain coins, because I do believe that there will be multiple other coins that will actually eventually go into the thousands per coin, like, you know, value wise. So yeah, I mean, yeah, sorry. Continuing on, I had so much more to say, but I'm trying not to get off the topic of Bitcoin. June 15th, 2011, someone wrote an article that said the Bitcoin business is entirely out of hand. And it literally goes into the fact of hacking, how much money has been stolen, how much the value of one Bitcoin is. It goes into Silk Road. There were a lot of articles. I think a lot of the reason why so many people took so long to actually get into cryptocurrencies was because of Silk Road, was because of the dark web, dark markets, whatever you want to call them. This is all that I was able to find constantly. It was other people who were praising it, saying that more people needed to get into this, or they would discuss how there were so many articles on Forbes. Keep that in mind for later on in the video, talking about how why would anyone trust this? Why would anyone want to put their money into a system that's not backed by government? They said it was a fraud. They said it was for criminals. We heard this even 2 years ago. They were saying that it's only for people who do illegal this and illegal so-and-so, and just trying to make sense of why this value of this coin was going up so high. Now it makes perfect sense to us. We understand that there wasn't a system like this before that was able to get as far as Bitcoin and then all these other cryptocurrencies that have kind of sprouted from it. But to think that there was an idea that this was a mania when the price was around $8 a coin is pretty laughable. Around 2012 was the first time that I was able to find, so 3 years after this first article was when I was able to find people talking about the profitability of mining cryptocurrencies in more of like a heavy fashion. I think at this point Litecoin had also come. I think there were only a couple of coins at this point that were actually floating around. A lot of them, I believe they still exist. A lot of them have changed their name to try and rebrand. But this is when you start reading articles about people who are heavily trying to get into cryptocurrencies. An article that says, I'm leaving Bitcoin, because this guy thought it was just a bit too much. He thought the entire thing was out of control. You know, he said he was making, 10, 15 Bitcoin per day. And he said, this is out of control. I don't think the prices will definitely go much higher. And it's just all kind of weird because we realize, it was definitely going to go a lot higher. This was around the point where I believe I started diving deeper into cryptocurrencies, because it was this number so before I got into cryptocurrencies, you can even see like the very beginning of this channel. I was into stocks. I was into bonds. I was into mutual funds. I loved mutual funds for the dividends. I loved the 6% yearly return. I thought this was the greatest thing that you could possibly do in finance. I remember telling my friends to also get into mutual funds. I mean, it wasn't, realistically, it's not a bad thing to put your money into. It's the safer way to put your money into it. But I also had a lot of friends who were into gold and silver, collecting gold and silver, investing in gold and silver, buying gold and silver bonds. So when the value of one Bitcoin actually passed the value of 1 ounce of gold, this was a complete wake-up call. It was as if someone had thrown a rock in my head, and I was like, you idiot, you should have gotten into this before, especially after, I'm sure, I'm sure this has happened to a lot of other people before. I'm sure you've read about cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin for a while. You saw people talking about it, and you didn't jump into it until the value got too high, because this FOMO then starts to hit you. Luckily, quotes, for me, by the time I got into Bitcoin, I remember I was watching it on the news and stuff like that. And this is when they first started having graphs on television, when they were talking about it openly, how Bitcoin had passed gold, and they were showing the graph on TV as the price of Bitcoin began to slide down. And I remember I first jumped into Bitcoin when it was around 200 a coin, maybe 250. I want to say 200, somewhere around there. And I remember I was telling my friends with as much breath as I had in my lungs to start buying Bitcoin, to start buying cryptocurrencies. Hope one of my closest friends isn't listening. I told this guy for years, and I mean at least 2 years, because around 2013 to 15 to 16, somewhere around there, the prices of cryptocurrencies didn't move. It was this like sluggish period where everything completely went sideways, and it drove me insane. And I mean absolutely insane, because you put your money into something that you saw rise dramatically for other people, and then it doesn't start moving. But over this time, I was slowly collecting and accumulating as much as I could. And I kept on telling my friend that something was going to happen. I was reading articles, people talking about mathematically that the price of Bitcoin would eventually hit $5,000. And I was like, if I'm getting in at 200, 5,000 is going to be, wow, I cannot wait for it to hit a high of 5,000 and then not go any higher. And I was not young and naive, I guess. I was younger, but, you believe in what you want to believe in. But so many people didn't listen, and this is kind of where we are now. 2013, after the prices, everything slid and fell back down. This was the darkest period, I think, besides what we've had the last 3 or 4 months when everything literally collapsed. This was probably the darkest period of cryptocurrencies because every news outlet made sure to rub it in our faces. They made sure to tell us how dumb we were, that this was a bubble. They told us it was a bubble. Why didn't we listen that it was a bubble? People who are into traditional finance, this is when they first started coming forward, because we knew that there were rumors that a lot of banks and a lot of other higher ups started getting into cryptocurrencies, because around the time that it was around 900, this is when, not the IRS, it was some higher authority, I can't remember the name of it, in America. This is when they first started coming forward and they were doing raids on these places because of Mt. Gox. They were coming forward and they were talking about, how there's a lot of fraud, there's a lot of this. So they were raiding these places. They were raiding people who had been on the dark web, and they were selling drugs, and they were selling this, and they were selling cryptocurrencies, or rather Bitcoin in particular, during private sales. There was one investor, I think one of the people who's very adamant and very vocal about cryptocurrencies right now. He came forward and he was talking about how he had gotten to Bitcoin when it was very, very cheap, because I believe around the time it was $600, he went to a private auction. I think he bought $5 million worth of Bitcoin, and you see the price where it is right now. So this guy has made tons and tons of money. But this is when government officials and all these other people, this is when they first started declaring that Bitcoin was not a threat. It's not a threat in any way. We don't really care about it. People are going to do what they want to do when it comes to cryptocurrencies. So this is just how things are. But when this crash happened, this was very significant, because this is the point when a lot of people started completely dumping. They got out of the market and they just did not care anymore. 5 years after this article is around the first time when I can finally start finding things about Bitcoin being called digital gold. The beginning of the Bitcoin movement, sorry to burst everyone's bubble, the entire point of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general was to get away from the world's financial system. It was to get away from the bankers. It was to get away from all these other things. It's not to break it to you in a horrible way, but that is completely done with. That is all gone. I'm sorry to tell you. We know that all these things are now solidified in finance, and I'll get a bit to that in a couple of minutes. This is the first time that I was able to find countries and world leaders start talking and declaring that Bitcoin was digital gold. It was no longer this utopian thing that was floating around for people to be able to get away from the government. It was no longer for hackers and people living in their mother's basements. It was now a thing to be able to store your wealth. This is when a lot of rich people started to come forward. There were a lot of meetings where I live, crypto enthusiasts starting to come together and talking about it. And I once met this woman. I don't remember her name for the life of me. This was literally 2013, 2014. She told me that there were a lot of rich people. She was from New York. A lot of rich people were getting into cryptocurrencies. And she was like, I think something really big is happening. And I was like, yeah, me too. And she's like, no, I think something crazy is happening that we can't really fathom. She told me she was a wealth manager for a number of people who lived in America, and particularly in New York, because this is where she lived. And she said that this one family, they either knew the Winklevoss twins or they had some sort of connection to them. And they told her one day, they said, go out and get us Bitcoin. And she was like, I have no idea what that is. So she did some research on it. And she said, okay, I found a way to get it online. She said, how much do you want? And they told her, they said, we need around $5 million worth. And she said she stopped because she's used to them, help us buy this property, help us buy this, help us buy so and so and so. When she realized that Bitcoin was just a protocol, and this family was telling her, let's put $5 million of our wealth into this thing. She said a number of other families also came up to her, not even connected to these other families, and they were telling her, yeah, I think it's time that we diversify. And she's like, into this? And they're like, yeah, we hear the rumblings of it. We hear exactly what's going on. This is why I'm very adamant. I'm not a hodler. as many people say, I will sell some of my crypto at a certain point. I have not sold. I believe in it. It'll hit a certain number. And this is when I'll start to slightly exit the market, maybe selling 50, 60, 70% of what I have so I can live a good life after paying taxes, what have you. But yeah, this is the first instance that I was able to find people calling crypto digital gold and no longer referring to it as something, you know, for hackers and stuff like that. It's even an article like this where they're talking about Bitcoin's value in its currency. They're focusing more on the blockchain now. They're talking about exactly why you should think about putting your money into cryptocurrencies, even though it's evil, even though it's this, even though it has to do with the dark web and it has to do with this. You know, maybe start looking into this because we feel like it can actually do something. And this is when I started telling even more people there's something happening. At least 3 years ago it was. We definitely know what's happening now. When Forbes and Bloomberg and CNN and CNBC start coming forward and talking about a certain thing, they aren't talking to people who don't have money. These channels are watched by people who are millionaires and billionaires. They use this information to decide where they're going to put their money. And when people begin talking about a store of value and a store of this and where you should put your money, et cetera, or investment websites begin telling you to do that, it's very clear, at least for me it was, I kind of read between the lines as much as possible. These things aren't for people who are making 15, 20,000 a year. They're for people who have tons of money who can throw $5 million into cryptocurrencies. Yeah, this is when Bitcoin was $280. People would lose their minds if they could still find that. A lot of the old articles, they still made sure to mention it was more like a 50-50. I don't know if you guys read the articles now or watch news now or watch news about cryptocurrencies now. There was a lot of, they made sure at this time to constantly talk about how it was used for illicit things, how it made, you know, watch out where you put your money. This could be potentially very huge and so and so and so. They made sure to always talk about how bad it was. Now you realize on the news, they never really bring up Mt. Gox. They don't bring up the dark web. They don't bring up anything. You may hear it once or twice, and it's only for a couple of seconds as to how they cover their butts when they want to talk about cryptocurrencies. But this is one of the first times when it was declared a store of value. It was no longer this. It was no longer this utopian thing to help us get out of it. And this is when even now as I'm talking and making this video, I hope you guys realize, especially once I get to the next couple of tabs, exactly what's happening with all of this. This isn't a mistake. This is all not coordinated. I don't want to say there's some higher up power who's using his puppet strings. I'm moving my fingers around as if I'm controlling a puppet. I don't think that's what's happening, but I think rich people have found a way to profit off of this. And this is why I keep saying, if they can profit off of it, you can also do the exact same thing. It's not rocket science. It's literally about reading, doing your own research, finding exactly which coins out there are the best, have the highest prospects for the future, which coins the rich people are talking about. There's a reason when you watch CNBC, why rich people are only talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Ripple. There's a reason why they keep repeating these things over and over and over. It's not a mistake. That they're doing it to drill it into other people's minds that these are the coins to put your money into. Moving on a bit. Yeah, this is the same exact thing. Same exact thing. This is 2015 was the time. Keep in mind, this is when the price was still down. This is when prices were moving completely sideways. I don't have any charts open for you guys exactly for the price of Bitcoin around this time. It drove everyone mad. No one could figure out why the price was constantly being put down. But now looking back, it kind of makes a bit more sense, especially when we didn't have a volume or even a market cap in the billions and billions of dollars. We know that the market is not easily manipulated, but it's a lot easier when you only have a couple 100 million floating around and people can push down the price. And it seems to be exactly, you know, what's kind of going on, especially when people are trying to put their money into it. It seems that a lot of rich people were just pushing it down as much as they could in order to drop their money into the system. 2016 was the first time that I was able to find February 2006. No, yeah, sorry, I thought I said February. 2016 was around the first time when I was able to find news articles about countries getting into cryptocurrencies. One of the main things about cryptocurrencies when I first got into it was the question, will other countries ever care about cryptocurrencies? At this time, it was just enthusiasts. It was just people, you know, going around, the price is floating around $200 something. Does anyone actually care about cryptocurrencies and the entire situation that's happening, still happening in Venezuela and another couple of other South American countries, where pretty much they're going through massive hyperinflation. Their currency is 10,000 times what it was before. Like it's completely gripped them. And this is when people started to mine cryptocurrencies in these countries. And there was talk about people in these poverty-stricken countries. Like it's not a super poor countries, you know, countries with less means, I can say. People started getting into it, and this is literally one of the first instances that I could find of countries starting to get into it. This is also around the same exact time. There were a number of African countries. I can't remember exactly which one. There were around 5 of them that started popping up in the news, where they were talking about people in these countries don't trust their current fiat currency, and they're slowly getting into it in South America as well, in a couple of places in Asia, I believe, which is very significant, because keep in mind, at this point, Bitcoin is only 7.5 years old, and we've already gotten to the point where now people are starting to not integrate it into their countries, but it's becoming a really big thing. It's like the beginning of mainstream. It's when everyone started picking up on it. Think of any other thing in history that has moved this quickly. Think about, and I mean anything, like type something in the comment section below if you can think of something that has been adopted this quickly as cryptocurrencies. And this is why a lot of people believe that they are going to literally take over the world, because all it takes is one huge economic meltdown, and logically we believe that people will start to dump themselves into cryptocurrencies, because this would be one of the safest places that they can go, especially because you'll stop caring or relying on your country's own currencies that they have. There isn't the US like $50 trillion in debt or something like that. None of this is sustainable, not to get too much into like normal economics or world policies or whatever the case might be, but this is very significant. This is only 7 years after Bitcoin has come around. I showed this in another video before, and I still think it's incredibly relevant. So many people have panicked over the last drop and stuff like that, and it's just to show exactly where we've been and pretty much where we're going. It's kind of like history repeating itself, especially for cryptocurrency, especially for Bitcoin in general. When prices will go back up, I think it is going to completely skyrocket, but there will be some point, like there has always been, where the market is going to fall back down. And I think we're going to see this for a long amount of time. Maybe not when we're in the trillions of dollars, but this is going to be something very significant moving forward. So this is like I said, I have a lot of tabs open, so I literally had to go into a second window. But this is literally just the first 6-7 years of Bitcoin being around, and how much had happened in the cryptocurrency space. You don't, like I said, you don't really realize how far that we've come. Bitcoin was a penny. Bitcoin was 380 and Bitcoin was 710. People were talking about how this was a bubble. People were talking about $45. This was the huge correction, 83% decline, and people completely lost their minds when it comes to all of these things. So let me try and get to the other one safely, as safe as possible. Yeah, there we go. It was quite difficult getting to this. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Clicking all these buttons. There we go. All right. So this brings us to exactly where Bitcoin is now, and kind of the future of Bitcoin, and where I personally think that it's going. You'll hear exactly when I disagree, because some of the things I found are kind of out of there. Over the last year, Bitcoin has been criticized because of how slow that it is. For those of you who were here last summer, you know that at one point, I think Ethereum was backed up by around 20,000 transactions on its blockchain, and Bitcoin at one day, I think after about a month or so, was around 200,000 transactions stuck in its blockchain, and everyone was like, there is no way that we're going to be using this in the real world. There's no way that we're going to be doing this. Bitcoin is not innovating, which they still kind of aren't. But I think Bitcoin is going to evolve into something that we couldn't have seen before. Like I said, we eventually thought that this was going to be this currency that everyone would use around the entire world, that everyone would pick it up, everyone would start using it, and it would completely move us away from the banks. But this is not what's happening. And now I think the people who are behind Bitcoin are people who are trying to help upgrade Bitcoin, who are not directly associated with the platform. They're trying to move it to make sure that it is completely solid as we go into the next couple of years. A lot of people associate smart contracts with Ethereum and also EOS. These are like the main things. And they're trying heavily now to make sure that Bitcoin has some of these upgrades. Bitcoin can't do exactly what these other platforms are doing. A lot of the upgrades will definitely be off-chain as well, especially for the Lightning Network. But they're definitely trying to move forward because they know that Bitcoin will need this in order to be pushed into the future. So I'm not skeptical. What's the word? I'm annoyed that it's taken them this long to kind of move forward, but I guess it all is part of the process. I guess in 8 years, we'll be looking back at videos like this and we'll think how silly it was that we were annoyed that Lightning Network took 2 years to come out or whatever the case might have been. So as of now, it kind of relies on speed and Bitcoin getting better for exactly what it's trying to do, because I still think, so Lightning Network has been activated on a couple of nodes. I think there's like a couple hundred or even 1,000 nodes at this point. But when it's fully implemented, I think this is what people on the news networks will again start talking about, because we're going to move away from a bit from Bitcoin being a store of value and digital gold and all this other stuff that rich people continue to talk about. And I think this is just me in my head. These networks will start talking about Bitcoin as a payment method again. Once we have clear certainty that Bitcoin can do 1 million transactions per second, this is why I'm so excited about Ethereum and EOS getting there before Bitcoin. That's a whole completely different story. I think we're going to get into another realm where, because we now know that countries are buying cryptocurrencies, banks are buying it. We know that for a fact. And when they hold a huge portion of it and they're telling people to open up crypto bank accounts already, what do you think is the next step? They're going to start allowing it as payment in banks and in stores and all these other places and all these other countries. In Russia, I wish I had opened up a tab for this. In Russia, if you Google it, type in like Russian government mining farm. Russia is very heavily, and so is China. They have their own cryptocurrency mining farms. Why do you think they're doing this? Do you think they're doing this because they think it's fun? They like investing $500 million into these gigantic warehouses in order to put 800 computers together to mine cryptocurrencies? No, this is all going to lead up to something. This is going to lead up to some spectacular event that a lot of people just can't see, but I hope that you all see. Why do you think they're all getting into this game? Why do you think they're all talking about it? Why do you think they're building regulations around it? If they didn't care, they wouldn't build regulations. If other rich people weren't getting into it, they wouldn't build any type of thing. They don't, I personally don't believe that they, not to ramble, I don't think that they actually care about protecting consumers. And I don't mean that as like the government doesn't care type of thing. Oh yeah, the government doesn't like us. I mean more so, I think this is more important to them. I think it's more about framework and rules and making so that they cover their tracks when they go into the future, especially for other rich people who are trying to get into this. We've heard time and time again, for whatever time you may be listening to this video, in 2018, in this month, I believe it is April right now, we keep hearing that May and June will be the time when all this institutional money floods into the market. And when is the time where we're going to get all these rules from the government? It's May and June. We heard 2 months ago, I was making videos about banks in Canada, banks in America, banks in Russia, banks in Asia who were talking about that they're going to offer crypto accounts for people. What's the next step when you offer crypto accounts for people who are holding money with you? You allow it as a payment method in your system because everything is already regulated. And this is where we get into kind of the crazy future of Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin first got started, people thought it was this hyper safe sphere that could not be broken. We were told that it was a completely anonymous transactions. You couldn't do this to it. You couldn't do so and so. The government had no control over it. And now we've gotten to the point in cryptocurrencies where holding Bitcoin is like holding a goose that constantly poops out golden eggs. And I don't mean that as a joke. The Winklevoss twins, we know that they have around, is around 100,000 to 200,000 Bitcoin. There are a lot of other heavy investors who've come forward who've said that they have all of this. Every time Bitcoin has a major fork, you then receive that money. So imagine having 100,000 Bitcoin and then you receive 100,000 Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin Diamond or Bitcoin Gold, et cetera, et cetera. So this will be, I think if you are holding on to, like this is, like I said, I'm not a financial advisor. One of the reasons why I stick with Bitcoin despite me believing heavily in other cryptocurrencies is because of the amount of forks that are coming from Bitcoin. There are a lot of other major coins that are now also announcing forks or airdrops, whatever the case might be. This is literally free money, and it's gotten to the point where I don't see this stopping. I think cryptocurrencies will evolve into this ecosystem where we're using different cryptocurrencies for a whole bunch of different things. These are just the forks for 2017 to 2018. You can find on Bitcoin Hot, my gosh. You can find on a lot of different crypto exchanges, hopefully you're using trusted ones, where you put your Bitcoin onto it and you get these free cryptocurrencies. A lot of people immediately cash out of them, but you're still getting free money. There's been a lot of, so there was a point where I think Bitcoin Cash was like $2,000 or something like that. Bitcoin Gold is a couple hundred. Bitcoin Diamond is whatever the price might be. This is all free money. This is all part of the evolution of Bitcoin. It's become so popular that these are literally entering the minds of every other person who are also using it. And it makes Bitcoin become a lot more valuable simply because you want to hold Bitcoin in order to get these Bitcoin World, Bitcoin Stake. Oh my gosh. I didn't even read the names of some of these. Bitcoin Faith. Just to be able to get into the game. And I don't think this is going to stop. This is a long list. I thought this was going Bitcoin Segway 2.0. Oh my gosh. Bitcoin Ore. I think this is definitely going to continue. This is kind of where the next topics of what's going on kind of come in. Because like I said, the beginning of Bitcoin was to get us away from totalitarian states, to get us away from all this other stuff. And I tried mentioning it a couple of months ago in another video, and people called me a fudster, a shiller, which I think sounds like a horror movie title, calling me all these things. And I'm trying to give you guys insight into what I see, simply because I understand that something very interesting is happening. If you hate cryptocurrencies and you don't like it, and you think it is bad for the system, you think it's bad for banking, you think it's bad for this, you don't create things around cryptocurrencies. You don't create Bitcoin derivatives. You don't add these things onto the stock market for people to be able to track cryptocurrencies. You don't add price trackers onto CNBC and so. You don't have, you don't dedicate entire hours to people talking about things that are going on. You don't have Bitcoin hedge funds with billions of dollars inside of them, and bragging about, once again, where they've heard this news, like where other rich people have heard this. So you should definitely get into it as well. Same thing with Bitcoin mutual funds. I tried to have this discussion with someone else, and they called me names. I don't know. I can't really say it on here. It came down to, I tried to explain, why do you think this is all happening at this time? Why do you think there is such a push for Bitcoin ETFs? Why do you think rich people care about Bitcoin ETFs? I think there is such a bright future for Bitcoin. And that is an amazing photo. And I want everyone to realize it. We have gotten to, I don't think Bitcoin is going anywhere. And I don't mean anywhere, at least for the next 20 or 30 years, unless rich people decide to turn on it, turn their backs on it. This is all stuff that is going to, this is stuff that's going to be listed on the American stock market. And when this happens on the American stock market, it's going to be listed on the Canadian stock market, and then the South American one. It's already happening on the European ones. They're already talking about launching these other things as well for cryptocurrencies. This isn't this isn't happening randomly. I think this is why I'm going to get into the future prices of Bitcoin, because I think a lot of them are definitely correct. This was posted, it says 2 hours ago. I think it was about a day ago at this point. Bitcoin has fallen. We know it. We see it. We understand that why the price has fallen. It has to do with Mt. Gox. It has to do with fear. It has to do with regulations. There's a lot of talk this year exactly where Bitcoin is going to go. A lot of the same people who said that Bitcoin would hit around 7,000 max last year. There were also people, they said 7,000, 10,000, 8,000, whatever the case might be. It hit 20,000. Usually when we have price predictions, after I was looking around, it usually doubles and or triples depending on how low they were before. So when people talk about 20,000, I'm going to hit it again. I think we could do this by June. I think we could do this by July. And that's not even me joking. If we get a large enough push into the market, I think Bitcoin is going to completely pass 20,000, it'll hit 20,000, it'll slump for a little bit because everyone will be kind of scared about what's going on. I realistically think we could probably hit this sometime around this year. And that's simply because of the constant talk by rich people that Bitcoin is going to have institutional money flowing into its corridors this year. There's so much talk over and over and over. I don't know if you guys believe it's like talking things into existence, kind of. If you say it enough, it'll eventually start to happen. If you tell enough people to buy Bitcoin, or why Bitcoin is a good idea, or why cryptocurrencies are a good idea, or why you should buy Ethereum, why you should buy Ripple, eventually people will start to pick up on this. If you continue to tell people that the price is going to hit 50,000, there's going to be a psychological effect, and people will begin to buy into the market as heavily as possible until Bitcoin gets to that amount, and then eventually we're going to have another 80% drop and everyone will panic until prices start going back up again. If we hit a multi-trillion-dollar market, to be 100% realistic, I think $50,000 Bitcoin is definitely going to happen. This, on the other hand, we spoke about this a couple of days ago as well, but this is also something that's very real, and I'll try and explain as best I can without stumbling around. So this has to do with the last tab that I have over there. It's about Bitcoin becoming the go-to currency, and the way that it's looking, it looks like this could actually become a possibility. I know a lot of people don't care for the vision or the idea of a one world currency. To be fair, we don't control any of this. At least I assume none of the higher ups in the world are actually listening to this. When you have so many things happening, think about how young Bitcoin in particular is. Think about how long it took for our stock market to get where it is. The stock market is actually hundreds of years old. There were stock markets around in the 1600s as well in Europe, and they were literally being traded by letters that were being sent back and forth. And we've gotten to a point where there was a currency that came out in 2008, 2009, that people are now predicting it'll hit $250,000. What is that, 13 years after it came out? Think about how odd that is. Think about these numbers. Think about exactly where that's going to go. This $250,000 number has a lot to do with Bitcoin taking up a huge portion of the world's capital. There's a lot of money that's stored in Swiss bank accounts, in Nostro Vostro accounts, all these other things around the world. If this money that's being held in these accounts, if when Bitcoin hits $100,000 a coin, this will cause a huge tidal wave of money to flow into cryptocurrencies, because we've gotten to the point where, I don't know if you guys have realized this, the more expensive something is, the more people want it and the more people get into it. This is just, I mean, at least my theory, but this is how the world kind of works. When we hit $100,000 per Bitcoin, which I believe is going to happen within the next year or two, just mathematically, the amount of people who are mining, there's going to be such a huge constraint on the amount of Bitcoin that's going around. There's a saying that some rich person said. He said, what's going to happen around the world when people realize that there's only 21 million Bitcoin floating around? We know these rich people have a huge amount of Bitcoin. 200,000 Bitcoin, so-and-so Bitcoin. There's 1 million in Satoshi's wallet. There's somebody who called me a liar before. You can literally Google it. I think he has like 1.01 million Bitcoin because people continue sending money to this address. Not exactly sure why, but good luck to them for sending their Bitcoin to this address that is not going to ever move. But 100,000 is going to be a very significant number, and this is when Bitcoin will solidify itself as this major world currency that is only going up in value. People will completely forget about the past times where things were going down and things were slowly falling down, you know, any type of crash that we may have had. And this is when I think that we will start seeing countries coming forward talking about, hey, you can spend Bitcoin here. Bitcoin is legal here. You can do so and so and so with your account. The same exact thing with 1 million. This has literally to do with Bitcoin taking over like a huge portion of the world's money. When governments start to declare, hey, you know, this is totally fine. We've always believed in it. Because I forgot the saying. It's I think first they fight you, then they make fun of you or something like that, and then they accept you and join you. And this is, we're at the beginning of the acceptance. I mean, guys, come on. Like, did anyone honestly think 3 or 4 years ago that there would be Bitcoin ETFs or hedge funds or mutual funds or derivatives or any of these things, or people in Dubai who are now accepting Bitcoin for luxury apartments. There was an article a couple of weeks ago. There was a woman, her and her husband, I think they built some gigantic, beautiful building, you know, with all the trimmings and stuff like that. And they sold every single flat inside there for Bitcoin. And I think the whole thing sold out like within a couple of days. So this is only going to accelerate more and more as Bitcoin literally becomes this thing that we can definitely use in every day. It's once we have Lightning Network and we can send microtransactions and you can buy a cup of coffee. I think this is, I don't want to say you should have some Bitcoin. I'm trying my hardest not to. Once again, I'm not a financial advisor, but the writing is all there. Please make sure to do your own research. After this, look at every tab that I've opened and literally do your own research on it, because I think something bigger is happening that a lot of people just aren't going to be prepared for. I think that this was and currently is our greatest chance of creating wealth for our families and for generations. Like there will never be anything like this in our lives ever again. I don't see anyone else creating a Bitcoin 2.0. Like it's here, it's solidified. This is why I tell you guys about certain coins and about holding a lot of them. Even now, Ethereum is projected to hit 10,000 at some point because of the network and how quick it is and all the ICOs and coins that are built on top of it, especially once they get Plasma and Casper. Same exact thing for, I don't know, people don't believe it. Ripple has partnered with 150 banks. They've partnered with all these other people. They have people who are going to be using their XRP token this year. People in companies who are processing billions of dollars worth of transactions. The current number that's floating around for XRP this year and next year is between $100 to $500. I know it's going to be, you know, market cap in the trillions, but if we have trillions of dollars coming into the market, this is why I tell you guys about certain coins, because I believe there are going to be a lot of people who hear what I'm saying, but they don't get what I'm saying. This is, rich people don't buy things that they aren't aware that they're going to profit from. The Winklevoss twins didn't buy 200,000 Bitcoin because they thought it would be a joke. Oh yeah, this is play money, we can send it to our friends. No, they know exactly what's going to happen. This is why Ripple is talking to all these banks. This is why there's an Ethereum alliance. It's literally hundreds of companies. It's all these major companies who are talking about the future of Ethereum and where they want it to go. This is going to create wealth that we could not imagine, or wealth that you cannot get from working ever. None of us will ever be able to work a 9 to 5 and make this type of money. This is why it's so significant. This might be the weirdest article that I found. I'm going to try and read through some of it. Remember that there will only be 21 million BTC forever. Even 4 million of them we know are completely lost right now. There's 4 million Bitcoin that we will probably never see again. They're lost inside of people's computers at the bottom of the ocean. Some people lost them on the blockchain, whatever the case might be. Approximately 16.5 million have been mined and some have been lost forever, including some that I have lost. This means that even less than 21 million will be in existence. There are over $600 trillion in global assets, fiat currency, stocks, bonds, real estate, fine art, etc. Owning one Bitcoin will be worth over $28 million if only 1% of the world's wealth turns into Bitcoin. This is what, I don't care that much for John McAfee. You can Google the craziest things that he said, but mathematically this does make sense. It seems to all be gearing up for this moment. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be 2020. It may not even be 2030. If this continues and people continue to make hedge funds and mutual funds and derivatives and stocks and bonds and all these other companies that are revolving around Bitcoin, and people start doing, what's it called? There are a lot of Bitcoin retirement funds. For a lot of people don't know, these companies hold actual Bitcoin. What happens when when we get to, I believe, 2020 and 2024? It's going to be so incredibly difficult to actually mine a Bitcoin. This is when the great snatch will start to finally happen. Everyone will be getting as much Bitcoin as they can because the price is going to absolutely explode, because it's going to be very difficult to actually own any type of Bitcoin. If you're able to put your Bitcoin and your cryptocurrencies into a bank and hold it there, or buy into stocks and bonds and mutual funds and all these other assets and buy flats and all these other stuff with cryptocurrencies, I think we're going to eventually, this is just me, I don't know if it's going to be 1% of the world's wealth into Bitcoin in particular, but I think at 1.1% of the world's wealth will be in cryptocurrencies. I don't know which cryptocurrencies. If I knew, I would literally tell you guys. I'm not even joking. If I had a time machine, I would definitely tell you. but I think this is going to happen. I think this may be a bit outlandish. 28 million per Bitcoin, but that's not to say that it can't happen. No one, when Bitcoin was 1 cent, ever thought that it would hit $20,000 a coin. That is a huge leap forward. This person says this is actually a conservative number. Many estimates are indicating that close to 8% of the world's wealth will turn towards Bitcoin. If this happens, then one BTC could eventually be worth $228.6 million. This is why some say that owning just one Bitcoin could bring about generations of wealth. Can you imagine that by owning one BTC, you could provide wealth for the next 4+ generations of your family? It's actually a lot more than that. If you know how to invest your money and you buy proper real estate, $228 million can last you for about 30 generations if you buy into it properly. I know it's hard to believe and seems fantastical, but the math does support such crazy possibilities. I think this growth potential is why we are seeing people starting to borrow against their homes in order to buy Bitcoin. Once BTC breaks 10,000 per coin, it will be off to the races. And this is exactly we saw what happened. It took a year for Bitcoin to go from 900 to hit 10,000. And then I think it took 2 weeks for it to hit 20,000. And if you've realized, since the last crash that we've had, think about how many rich people have come forward. All these, and I don't mean a couple wealthy people, who've come forward talking about they're getting into cryptocurrencies, that they're making their own cryptocurrency exchanges, that they're doing so and so, that their family, like, why are the Rockefellers just randomly into Bitcoin after it fell by 70%? Would you want to get into something like what if one of your friends told you, he was like, hey, I know this thing called BitConnect, and I know it fell by 95%, but you should put all your money inside of it, and you're definitely going to be rich when it's over. Would you listen to that person? Like, this is what I'm saying. I believe this is all coordinated, not to beat this dead horse like I know that I do so many times, but the writing is on the wall. My current prediction is that once we hit 10,000 again, we're going to see a huge uptick in volume, especially for every single coin. I believe this is going to happen sometime May or June. Don't quote me on that. But I think once we hit 20,000 again, I think it's literally going to be something that we've never seen before, because there's a lot of projects and a lot of cryptocurrency exchanges and all these other things that have not launched yet. Coinbase is talking about adding ERC20 tokens. They're talking about adding Ripple. They changed their protocol for exactly which coins can be added. I'm pretty sure that they're going to have around 10 plus coins by the end of the year on their platform. I hope that you and I are all holding the correct coins, because there's going to be money created that we could not have ever imagined. And I want to make sure that we are all part of this race. To finish off this video, something that I wanted to mention at the very beginning, but I think it's kind of funny, weird, I don't know exactly what to call it. When I first heard about cryptocurrencies after my friend told me that fateful day as he was playing World of Warcraft, one of the things that I first started reading about was that Bitcoin was actually created by the government. And this was very early on. And now there's so many articles about who exactly created Bitcoin. Nobody believes that it was some guy named Satoshi Nakamoto. A lot of people don't believe that it was even a group of people. They believe that more or less it was actually the government, and that this is all one big scam. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I don't know exactly what your thoughts are. As always, these videos are here for us to have discussions, for us to talk about it, to see exactly what you guys think about what I spoke about, to see if I missed anything, what you think I should talk about next, whatever the case might be. But I'd be pretty upset if this was all part of some government hoax. I don't trust this one website. I was looking around for valid articles and didn't really find many, but this is a huge thing that's going around. There are a lot of people who are staying away from cryptocurrencies because they do believe that this will be the one world currency in the future. I personally don't believe in it, but I think we're going to get to a point where Bitcoin is literally as mainstream as the US dollar. I apologize for the length of this video. I told you it was going to be a lot of tabs. When I was first figuring out how to make this video, I tried to fit every single tab into one window, and it just didn't work. It was actually impossible to even click on a particular tab. It was a complete mess. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys understood what I said. I made a video when I first started cryptocurrencies about Bitcoin. I think it was literally called "Why You Need to Know What Bitcoin Is Now," or "Why You Need to Get Into Bitcoin." And I spoke about, there was an article that I had read earlier that day or that week or something like that, about a whole bunch of rich people who were going to an island around Florida, and they were literally going to discuss the future of Bitcoin. And I told people said I was lying, and this is kind of where we are now. I think this is all leading up to something very big. Please make sure when you are investing in cryptocurrencies, I know a lot of people don't really, not that they don't listen, but make sure that you know where you're putting your money. Make sure you understand that it's not a scam. There are a lot of cryptocurrency channels that are popping back up once again, and they're talking about 10,000% returns and this returns, and definitely buy into this coin. A lot of people who were pushing BitConnect have restarted their channels because of the last price jump that we had last week. And I am fairly certain that this is only going to continue as the prices continue to go up in the coming weeks. I'm not telling you which channels to watch. There's no one channel in particular, but please make sure that you pay attention. If someone says that you have guaranteed returns, or they're showing you a graph where the coins are definitely going to go back up and prices will definitely hit this, just use your due diligence and try to stay away from them. I made this channel, I said it before, I made this channel because I want everyone to actually become rich. That is actually my dream. I would love if all my friends could become incredibly wealthy with me, so we can just travel the world together and we can all have fun. I don't like, I grew up, you guys don't have to know about my life. I grew up very poor. So this is kind of a dream of mine to be able to help other people, especially. This is why I continue to make videos every single day. I've dragged this video on probably longer than it should be. I hope you guys all have a great day, great afternoon, great evening. Thank you once again for all the support. I really mean it. Tell me what you thought of the video below. Tell me if I missed anything significant about the history and or future of Bitcoin, and what coins you think could possibly be as big as Bitcoin in the future, because I'm fairly certain we're going to have about 10 coins that are also going to be massive as the years continue to go on. All right, everyone, I'm completely out of breath. I hope you guys all have a great day, and I will talk to you all soon. See you.